On the day I brought my father home from his final hospital stay, our neighbor parked his truck across our entire driveway. When I knocked and explained, "Please, my dad's too weak to walk far," he shrugged and said, "Should have thought of that before you brought a dying man here." I had to carry my father, breathless and crying, half a block in the cold just to get him inside. He died 3 days later. I never forgave myself for his last memory being that walk. My dad didn't want to die in a hospital. He told me that more than once. Not even in words sometimes, just the way he looked at the white walls, the machines, the bags hanging off poles. He hated it there. Said it smelled like waiting. He wanted to go home. So when the doctors told us it was time, that there was nothing more they could do, I did what he asked. I signed the papers. I brought him home. That day was colder than it looked. Late January in Lakewood. The sky was that bright, washed-out blue that makes you think maybe it's warming up, but it wasn't. It was the kind of cold that goes through your jacket and sets in your bones. I had everything ready. Hospital beds set up in the living room. Extra blankets. Oxygen tank. Hospice nurse scheduled. I'd cleared the driveway that morning to make it easy. He wouldn't have to walk more than a few feet. But when I turned onto our street, I saw it, our neighbor's truck. That stupid red Ford F-250 he always parked like he owned the block. He had pulled it sideways across our entire driveway. Front to back. Like he did it on purpose. At first, I thought maybe he had an emergency. Maybe he was unloading something. I honked once. Waited. Nothing. My dad opened his eyes in the passenger seat and gave me this tired little smile. "Almost home," he whispered. I parked at the curb, put the flashers on, ran to his door. He was already struggling with the seatbelt. "Wait," I said. "Stay in the car. I'll go talk to him." I walked up his front steps and knocked. He took his time. When he opened the door, he was chewing something, jerky or sunflower seeds, I don't know. He didn't look surprised to see me. Just leaned on the doorframe like he'd been expecting it. "Hey," I said. "Sorry to bother you, but I need to pull into my driveway. My dad just got discharged. He's really weak, he can barely walk. Could you move your truck?" He looked past me. Saw my dad barely upright, leaning against the car window. Then he smirked. "Should have thought of that before you brought a dying man here." He shut the door in my face. Just like that. I stood there for a second, not really believing what just happened. Then I ran back to the car. My dad was already trying to open the door. I helped him out. He winced just from standing. His legs were like sticks. I put one arm around his back, let him lean on me. We walked. Half a block. His feet dragged. I kept telling him, "Almost there, Dad. Almost there." But he cried. Quietly. Tears just leaked out of his eyes as the wind hit his face. By the time we made it inside, he was shaking. I got him onto the hospital bed. He was pale and gasping. 3 days later, he was gone. I didn't go to the neighbor's house after the funeral. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I had enough rage inside me already, and my dad was barely in the ground. People came by, dropped off food, said all the things people say. "He's in a better place. At least he's not suffering." I nodded and said thanks, but I kept thinking about that walk. About how heavy he felt. Not physically. Emotionally. That look in his eyes, like he was ashamed I had to carry him. I never forgave myself for it. And I never forgot what that man said. After the funeral, I sat on the porch every evening with a coffee or a beer, just staring at that red truck. He kept parking it across the driveway. Every time. Like he was proud of it. He never once said sorry. Never once looked my way. Then one night, about a week after the funeral, I caught him outside unloading groceries. I walked over. Calm. Cold. "You knew he was dying," I said. He straightened up like he wasn't sure where this was going. Excuse me? You knew my dad was dying. And you blocked our driveway anyway. Then you laughed about it. He gave a little shrug, turned back to his trunk. Not my problem. Something in me snapped. You made him walk half a block in the freezing cold. He was crying. He was in pain. He died 3 days later. He closed the trunk, looked at me with that smug, dead-eyed face. Well, he was gonna die anyway, wasn't he? I didn't hit him. I wanted to. Instead, I walked away. Because I knew something then. I couldn't get justice with fists. People like him don't feel shame. They only feel fear. And loss. So I started thinking. He had a lot to lose. That's when I started watching. Quietly. Every day. I took note of what time he left for work. When his wife left. What deliveries they got. How long they were gone. I noticed little things, like how they never locked the back gate, or how they kept spare keys in a fake rock by the porch. I wasn't going to rob them. I wasn't going to hurt them. I was going to tear apart his world piece by piece. The first thing I did was easy. I called in a complaint to the city. Said his truck was blocking driveways, causing safety hazards. Sent in photos. After the third report, a city worker came and left a fine on his windshield. He was outside screaming when he saw it. A week later, I reported him again. Then again. Each time, a bigger fine. Then I found out his fence wasn't up to code. Neither was the shed in his backyard. I took pictures, mailed them in anonymously. 2 weeks later, inspectors showed up. He tried to argue, but he was stuck with warnings and more fines. His wife started parking on the street. I noticed she had some kind of medical device in her car. Dialysis, maybe. So I called a friend in zoning and had a tow warning put on her car for being too close to a hydrant. It got towed the next day. They had to pay over $300 to get it back. Still, he didn't know it was me. So I kept going. Things started shifting fast after that. A few days later, I got home from work and saw a moving van across the street. Not at his house, his brother's. I didn't even know the guy had a brother, but apparently he'd been staying there after a divorce. They fought in the driveway. Loud. Red-faced. Something about money. I didn't care what it was, but I watched. Watched as the brother peeled out, left tire marks in the snow. Later that night, I made my first real move. I waited until around 3 a.m., when I knew they were both asleep. Slipped gloves on, walked around to his backyard, opened the unlocked gate, and took the spare key from the fake rock. I didn't go inside. That wasn't the point. Instead, I walked down the block, took the key with me, and threw it down a storm drain. Just gone. 3 days later, I watched from my porch as he patted every plant pot and stone in his yard looking for it. His wife came out, confused. They argued. She slammed the door. I could hear her yelling through the window. That same week, he finally got his truck towed. The city had warned him 3 times. This time, they didn't even knock. He came running out in socks, shouting at the tow truck driver. I watched from my window, sipping coffee. That was the moment I knew he was starting to break. But it wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel my kind of guilt. The kind that lives in your chest and never leaves. So I dug deeper. I found out where he worked. He managed a small plumbing supply company in Arvada. His company had a handful of reviews online, mostly bad. I left some of my own. Owner is rude and unethical. Blocked my disabled father from entering his home. Disgusting human being. I didn't even try to hide it. Others started piling on. Friends. Strangers. People who knew the story. One post on Nextdoor, and suddenly the guy's name was everywhere. Then came the health inspector call. Another anonymous tip. Said he was storing copper pipe and sealant inside without proper ventilation. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. The inspection happened. His business shut down for 2 days while they did a full sweep. I drove past that day and saw him outside, pacing on the phone. Screaming. Still, I wasn't done. Then came the dog. Their little beagle, Sadie. She used to bark at everyone, but not me. She'd wag her tail when I walked by. One day, I saw her sitting in the yard with a weird limp. Nothing bad, just a slight favoring of one paw. The next time I saw his wife outside, I said something casual. Hey, I noticed Sadie's been limping a little. You should check for rodent bait. Someone might have left poison out. Her face changed instantly. Fear. I added. You know, there've been people in the neighborhood who hate dogs barking. Real sickos. Could be nothing, though. That night, they put up cameras around their yard. New locks on the gates. Replaced the fake rock. I didn't care. The seed was planted. 2 days later, they took Sadie to the vet. 3 days after that, she was gone. I don't know if it was poison or just illness, but I watched the wife carry a wrap blanket out to the backyard. I watched her bury something small. That broke her. She stopped leaving the house. I didn't see her at all after that. And still, he kept parking his replacement truck like nothing happened. So I found one last card to play. I followed him one night, not too close. Saw him stop at a bar downtown. Same one every Thursday. Sat at the same stool. Talked to the same woman. She wasn't his wife. Not even close. I didn't even need to dig. Her name was Melissa. She was loud, she laughed too much, and she kissed him in the parking lot like she didn't care who saw. So I made sure someone did. I took pictures. 3 weeks worth. Him and her. Different outfits. Different days. All of them in color. Printed them at the drugstore like they were just vacation photos. I slipped them into an envelope with no return address and left it on their porch late one night. By the next afternoon, her car was gone. Not just from the driveway. Gone. She didn't come back. He came home to an empty house. I watched from the living room window as he stood there in his driveway, staring at the front door. He had a manila envelope in his hand. Must have found it inside. He looked like he'd been punched. 4 days after that, he didn't go to work. Didn't move his truck. He just sat on his porch sometimes, staring at the ground. One day I heard him yelling inside. Like full-on screaming. Punching the wall kind of stuff. Another day, he kicked a chair across the yard. The house started falling apart. Weeds grew up in the front. Mail piled on the porch. Trash cans didn't make it to the curb. Once, I saw him drinking out of a bottle in the middle of the afternoon, sitting on the steps in just a t-shirt and boxers in freezing wind. That should have been enough. But it wasn't. I wanted him to say it. To say why he blocked that driveway. Why he made that comment. Why he had to turn a simple moment of kindness into something cruel. So one night I went over. I knocked on the door. He opened it. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Red eyes, hollow cheeks, stubble thick on his face. "What do you want?" he asked. I didn't smile. I didn't yell. I want to know why. He didn't pretend not to understand. He leaned against the doorframe like he didn't have the energy to stand. Because I hated the way he looked at me. I blinked. What? Your dad. He used to watch me. Sit out there on his porch, drink his coffee, and stare like I was scum. Like I didn't belong here. You mean he sat outside? No. I mean he judged me. Every day. And when I saw him come back from the hospital, I knew he was almost gone. I wanted to remind him he didn't matter. That's it. I stared at him. And something in me cracked. Because for all the pain he caused, my dad's last walk, the tears, the cold, the guilt, I suddenly realized something. He was scum. But so was I now. I'd destroyed his life. Piece by piece. I'd become the monster I wanted him to face. I stepped back. You're right, I said. You didn't matter. And now? Neither do I. I turned and walked away. A few weeks later, his house went up for sale. Word got around he couldn't afford the fines or repairs anymore. I saw him move out one cold morning. He didn't look at me. That was the last I ever saw of him. I kept the pictures. I kept the notes. I kept the printout from the hospital with the date and time of my dad's discharge. I keep them in a drawer in the hallway. Sometimes I take them out and read the hospice paperwork again. Just to remember. He hurt my father. But I hurt him worse. And I still don't know if that makes me feel better, or worse.